thank you actually for joining us. Especially for those teachers who agreed to come on board on the project. So thank you very much. I believe that Sharon, or through your contacts, you were updated on what we're doing here. If not, we can either meet or take this offline, but I wouldn't want to hog this hour or so from the actual session, from the actual CPD session. So thank you. Ewan, that's it, I would say. I would give the floor to you.
Okay then, thank you very much. And thanks to all of you for joining in this session. As I said, we're recording the video and it will be available later on this evening. It means that if you've got a colleague who wasn't able to make it, or if you want to try and persuade a colleague to maybe join in the fray, then they can do. And they'll have some good starters to get them and their students underway with what can be a really exciting project. For those who don't know me, I'm Ewan McIntosh. I'm a languages teacher by trade. French and German were the two languages I taught. Nowadays, I work with teachers across all sorts of disciplines, all kinds of ages and stages. And a large part of the work, about 30% of the work that we do, is not in schools. It is in the engineering business, the creativity industry, and particularly the media. And so when teachers from Malta suggested, why don't we design a magazine? It could be an interesting way to engage young people. I was really keen to share some ideas about how you might go about that and what kinds of technology might help on that journey. So what we're going to look at today are just some first steps to help your students in what is an ambitious project and should set their expectations high. We're going to do three things. First of all, I'll share some key ideas just to get you started. They're not gospel. It's not the only way to go about things. It's just hopefully a little bit of inspiration. And for some of you, it will be a reminder of technologies that you already know about, that you already use, but maybe haven't used in this way before. I'll give you a suggestion for some technology that will help you help your students make beautiful, high quality magazines. And one of the challenges I think we have is that students are used to an incredibly high quality of print and online material. And so they expect to be able to produce the same themselves. And until recently, that was very hard to do. And I think in school, too often, we start with a blank sheet of paper. And nowhere is that more frustrating, actually, than learning a foreign language, because we want to be able to, we want to be able to be as good as the real thing. Intellectually, many of your students are up here. Perhaps their language isn't quite there yet. And so getting the look, the feel, and the content right for a magazine can really help increase their engagement and motivation in language learning. There are four things we're going to look at first. But the most important rule of all that I think you'll have to explain to your students and maybe think about some ways of communicating this with them or to them is that really content comes first and the form, making of the magazine, comes later. Too often, when students start with the form, it's actually really difficult to fill a magazine, to fill a magazine type page. And so it can become quite demoralizing. However, doing it the other way around, actually creating some interesting content first and then putting it into the magazine format can be really engaging and satisfying. You might want to introduce the idea of content first, form later by getting some magazines together, any old magazine really, and getting students to analyse them in mother tongue if you want to. What is it that makes a magazine interesting? What is it makes them want to pick it up? And above all, what makes them want to keep on reading it? There are four things then that you might want to consider in your lesson planning. And you might even consider these as kind of one lesson per theme. First of all, topic, then audience. Who are you writing for? It's not something we consider very often in foreign language learning for some reason, but it is hugely important. Who are you writing for? The tone that you choose to adopt. Writing in a genre or writing in a format like a magazine is different from writing like a newspaper, which is different from writing like it's an essay. You might think that's kind of intellectually up here when what you're wanting is some quite simple language perhaps. But really getting the tone right is going to help them in their language production. And then finally, the content. And I've got some ideas for content. Let me first of all go through topic, audience, and tone quite quickly. So first of all, your students are going to have that challenge that any creative has when they're faced with the blank sheet of paper. What are you going to make a magazine about? That should really be the opening discussion with your students. Ask them to think about what makes a good magazine a good magazine. Generally, there are three things, and each of these things offers an opportunity to write or produce really good content at all levels of language learning. First of all, a good magazine tends to look after what you call an ongoing need. So these are things that people like to read about all the time, all year round. That's why wedding magazines are so popular. Not funnily enough because it's brides who buy them, but because it's wedding organisers or people who organise parties, that kind of thing. Other themes are travel, food, specific hobbies, quite specifically. So when I compare a magazine rack in a newspaper shop with a curriculum in a foreign language, there are huge similarities because they're generally thematic. So what you're looking for is a theme that people tend to be interested in most of the time. That's the first thing. And you can write articles about pretty much any theme. You can write short pieces, long pieces. You can practice writing short headlines with a subject, verb, and object. But you do need to have one good theme that everyone in the team is going to write about. The team, you might find, is not your class. You might find that there is a group of students in the class who wish to write about travel, and there's another group who really want to write about food, or there's another group still who want to explore hobbies. I'm a believer in offering that student voice and choice in the classroom. It's not a classroom management nightmare. And for the practice of learning language, you have to ask yourself, what's the key goal? Is it to learn vocabulary lists about food or vocabulary lists about travel? Or is the goal to get students communicating about a new area to them? And I think it's the latter. So choose a theme if you can as a whole class. If not, ask students what they would be interested in diving into and try to get them to collaborate in teams of maybe 2, 3, 4 students. More than 4 and someone's not going to be thinking. So I think teams should always be maximum 4 people, and it's probably most manageable as a pair or in threes. Second of all, is that magazines tend to have a person on the front cover. And you might want to get students thinking about interesting people who help them tell the story about the theme they've chosen. Now, interesting people could be local folk. This is actually a photograph on the slide of a Maltese man. I'm interested already in his story. I don't know who he is. I don't know what his story is, but I could almost certainly create a story about him. And so you could do portraits of people in that way. I'll share a little bit more about how the technology might help you go about finding those interesting people to write about. You might not have the capacity to get out and about from school. You might have to go out online and find images that stimulate that. And then writing a text that goes along with a photo is incredibly powerful. And then the third piece that nearly always comes up in magazines are those regular rubrics. So it could be a horoscope, could be an agony aunt. But in some of the magazines I read, Technology Magazine, for example, there would be a small column on future technology, something that will happen in 10 years from now. Or it could be a top 10 list of things to explore when you're in Malta, if travel was the theme, or a top 10 list of the things to do in Europe's capital cities. So the advantage of these 3 different types of ways that you can explore a topic is that you've got longer texts for students who are stronger. You've got portrait or texts that children can write about people, which are great really for any level of language, but good for the majority of students. And then if you've got students struggling with foreign language, then a rubric or a top 10 list or one of those regular kind of columns could provide a low complexity of language that still allows them to participate fully and also push their language towards something new for them. So topic is the first theme. I would say that in your first lesson or first lessons, you might want them to discover what kind of topics they might be interested in writing about and forming their magazine around. You might want to give them lots of magazines to be able to be a little bit inspired by what's out there. What kinds of different topics are there that can be explored? So topic is important. The second phase of your planning, this one might be quite brief, but you've got to have a discussion with your students about the audience for their magazine. Who is going to read it? Why would they want to read it? Your students have to write compelling articles and stories that are going to be attractive to the person they're writing it for. Again, in foreign language learning, we often don't have audience in mind. We're just producing language almost for the sake of producing it. So think carefully, is this going to be for students like them? Maybe you've got an e-twinning partner and the students are younger. That's always interesting. So if you've got 14-year-old students, could they write a text or a magazine that's suitable for 11-year-old learners? And you've got that 2 or 3 years age difference, which is a little bit aspirational. The 11-year-olds want to be like the 14-year-olds, and the 14-year-olds have an interesting role kind of nurturing the language skills of those other children. Maybe it's an e-twinning partner in the country of the language that the students are learning. But rather than going for students the same age, why don't you get secondary school students writing something for students much younger that will engage them? You might also be writing for the local community. So if it's a foreign language, but you have a local French-speaking community, for example, or a local Italian-speaking community, maybe you're writing a magazine for that community. And so your audiences are the people living there. It raises a really good question. Are you going to be able to maybe print it or electronically deliver your magazine to those people through local shops or local community groups? That's a task that the students can undertake when they're underway writing their content. You can ask that nice question, who's going to read this? How will we get it into their hands? And of course, you've got your fair share of tourists. So are you writing for international visitors? If that's the case, maybe you could suggest to students that they telephone your local tourist board or tourist information centre and ask them, would they be willing to stock some paper versions of the magazine, or cheaper and better for the planet, would they be willing to put the web address of the magazine in a prominent display in the tourist information so that tourists can download it? And then, of course, going down there and actually meet some of the tourists who are using the magazine that your students have produced. Just ideas, but try and make sure that the audience is an authentic one somehow. Third, you want students to think about the tone. You might bring this into the discussion about audience because the tone has to match the audience. Are your students trying to write something authoritative and factual? Are they trying to write historical pieces or political pieces which are designed to be a little bit more like Time magazine? Or are they writing something a bit more light-hearted and more of their opinions? Really, both are good, but for foreign language learners, often being able to offer your opinion is something that features in every curriculum. It's something that's important to learn how to do, and the style is easier to write in, that kind of light style. It means you can use simple present and past tense. You don't have to worry about some of the more complex language that's there. However, maybe there's a column which is meant to be authoritative, and that's the column that you're going to use a slightly different tone. A great way to push stronger learners to work harder is maybe consider how you can give them an authoritative piece to write rather than just an opinion piece. And then finally, the content. What is it your students are going to do? So we suggested some ideas there. Interviews, portraits of people, of local people, photo stories. And the reason that each of these focuses on people is that when you look at magazine covers, everything is about people, no matter which magazine it is you write. And of course, boilerplate content. There is just content that every magazine has. So let me explore now just a couple of web resources that might help you on that journey. And when I've done that, I'm then going to offer you the chance to come back with your own questions. So let me just, I'm going to share the screen, but I'm going to share a different screen with you. Just going to go to my desktop, and that'll be easier. So now you should hopefully see my very messy desktop. And what I'm going to do is open my browser. Here we go. Maybe Daniela or one of the team can come on and just let me know that you can see my web browser.
Yes, we can.
Fabulous. So I'll just explain a couple of ideas for 5 minutes, and then I would like to open up to questions and answers. I'm giving you quite a lot up front, and I'd love your questions about these specific technologies, but also maybe questions about other technologies you're thinking of using, and we can bring them up on the screen and share that amongst participants. So the first thing I'd say is photography is, first of all, it's useful for making your magazine look beautiful, but also it can be a great stimulus for writing. It's much easier starting with an image than it is starting with a blank sheet of paper. So I make great use of Flickr, Flickr. It's been around for over 10 years as a photo sharing website. The quality of photos tends to be rather high. The people who use this service tend to upload high quality photos of landscapes and people and what have you. So I've just run a search here for Malta. You'll notice that I've got my safe search on. It means that I'm not going to uncover something that I shouldn't. And in terms of license, a really important lesson for your students to learn is that the internet is not a free-for-all. It's not a case that you can just go online and take any image you want. But we do have licenses that allow you to use the photos, high-quality photos, for free. And they're called Creative Commons. So I'm going to search all the Creative Commons images of Malta and see what comes up. I've actually got an image of Malta. This is a Maltese teacher from an e-twinning project. I've got the people in my online community who've taken photos. This is Jerry Queen, a friend of mine in Glasgow, who loves going to Malta on his holiday. And then I've got everyone's photos. So I'm going to go to everyone's photos because I've got far greater choice there, 76,000 photos I can choose from. And now I can choose, do I want the most relevant photos, the most recent photos, or do I want the most interesting photos of Malta? And when I do that, I get some brilliant, more kind of artistic photos maybe of Malta that I can choose from. Say I want this photograph here as a front cover picture later on. I'm going to download a full size of that. On the right hand side at the bottom, you'll see that I can download this in a really quite a large size, very high quality size. Just for the sake of speed, I'm going to download large, but not the original. And you'll notice that's downloading now in the bottom left of my window. In fact, it's downloaded already. So I could go and find some other pictures here. I might find a picture of me because I want to have a photo of the editor of the magazine. So I've got some photos here that I've got here. I'll take this one here. This is me actually in the middle of the desert. I'm going to download that a little bit smaller. And that means I've got a photo of me for the editorial that I'm going to write welcoming readers to my magazine. And you can search these Creative Commons images incredibly easily, as you've seen. You can look for not just places and physical objects, but you can actually look for emotions as well. So if your students are saying something is exciting, then you could type excitement or exciting into the photo and see what comes up. So I've got some of my own photos there, which were exciting. I think that's my baby enjoying her first ever smoothie and finding that exciting. I'm just going to type exciting and again, see what comes up. So from people I follow, there's plenty. Here are some more photos from the Creative Commons that I can use. I'll just make sure, turn my safe search on, and you'll see that when I do that, I've got some brilliant photos that I can use. How about that one there? That's a great one. So this is about, maybe I've got an article I want to write about exciting things that children can do in my community, and that's what I want to put down. A top 10 list of things to entertain your children. So finding images is easy using Flickr. You can also use different things. This is a site I just found today, and the internet is full of amazing sites to give you inspiration. So with this, it just presents me with an inspiring image to set me off, to give me something to think about, something to write about. So here we've got some inspiration around photos that betray the truth, if you like, or do something different. We've got the Rio mount with a plane flying through it. We've got someone reading a book on the train. These are, just by clicking surprise me on Inspire Me Now, I get lots of provocations. Maybe an article about video games, maybe an article about objects that have been transformed into something different. So these might help students who just struggle. What am I going to write about? I don't know what I'm going to write about. And you'll get some interesting little inspirations from things like that. If your students are trying to do something different, it might be that they cannot settle on a theme. So I discovered this as well today when I was having a little noodle around. And I thought, wouldn't it be interesting? I've got a group of students who have absolutely no ideas about what they want to write about. So instead, we choose colours that they want to write about. So let's say we can select up to 5 colours. So I'm going to pick a red and kind of yellow team. And this now runs a search on Twitter for all the photos that are yellow and red. And any of these I could use as stimulus for articles. So pick a photo, find out a little bit more about it, and then we've even got the link here to the original photo. So I can now write a story about Macedonia, perhaps. It doesn't really matter what students are writing about, as long as there's a long theme that they can tie into. We could pick another group that's going to, if I reset this, let's just go back to the beginning, delete the colours. Another group is going to concentrate on green and blue photos. What comes up for them? What happens when I add a third colour? And so you end up with a magazine whose themes are actually colour, not content. And your students are coming up with ideas about what they could write creatively in response to that content. So with more advanced language learners, that could be really useful. But even for beginners, maybe there's a way of using that kind of stimulus just to get some different types of writing, short, medium, and longer type writing. You've also on Flickr got some groups, photo groups. I found these earlier on today just by searching up here for storytelling and search groups. And when you search the groups, it will give you all kinds of groups that people have created to tell stories through visuals. If I open a couple of them, some of my favourites, which have been around for years. Some of these have been around 11, 10 years. This is a group called My Story. And it's basically people pitch up a discussion based on a photograph. Now, here we go. So we pick a photograph. Let's try this one. This one looks like it's in French. Le Bonheur, La Rochelle in 2015. That's where I was this summer, in fact. All it is a photograph. And just the photograph, and it's waiting for a story to be told. So it's called Le Bonheur. That's what the photographers called it. But what could your students write about Le Bonheur? This one, the amusement park. What could your students write about that? So the photographs, there's only 1,900 photos here, but every one of them has been chosen by the group from the group discussions to tell a story. And it's down to you to choose what the story is. The title for this one, Deserved. What do your students think? This would be a great way to get some kind of discursive writing out of some older students. You've also got ones like 6-word story. The 6-word story is a photograph, and the job here is write one story in 6 words. So here it's maybe to hold the grass down. That's the 6-word story. Maybe to hold the grass down based on that one photograph. What's the next one? We don't actually have a story for that one. So some of these don't seem to have stories and others do. Let's have a look at this one. Flowers and hearts, flowers and hearts. So very simple language. these kinds of stories could work for your beginner learners. So if you've got kids just beginning to learn a language, can they write a story using only 6 words? Great for dictionary skills too. Working on the night moves too. So that you get some inspiration from these groups in Flickr for things that students can write about. And the best thing is you get great visual content that your students can use to write about. This one is called Urban Sketchers, and it's people who actually hand draw the cities in which they find themselves. And you can use those as perhaps illustration or stimulation for writing or speaking in the magazine. So plenty of food for thought there, I hope. There's, in terms of using those visuals, what else can you do? How do you bring them together? Well, the site that I use, that I love using for coming up with magazines, is called Canva. And I think I would recommend using it. It's not just great for magazines, it's great for designing Facebook covers, if your class have a Facebook page, or posters for events, maybe the poster to advertise your magazine. You can use it to also design great presentations. But I've started making a magazine. And when you start making a magazine in this, hopefully it's just loading up, you'll see that I've got my cover that I've chosen, and I can change every element of this. So this has been contributed by a community member of the Canva network. So I can call this anything I want. I can change the subhead as well, so that the text is matches what I'm trying to do. I can set a price for what I'm trying to do as well. The image at the back, I'm not going to keep, because if you keep one of the images that have been suggested for you, you have to pay for it when you eventually download and get your magazine. So instead, I'm going to upload one of those images that I made before. You can also search for images, but far better to have students make their own images. So if I upload, let's go and find that image from earlier on. We took a few. So do I want the face, do I want me, or do I want Malta? I think I'll go for Malta. So that image is now uploading. It will take a little moment to upload because it was very high quality. And now I just drag and drop into my magazine. And there is my front cover beginning to take shape. I can crop it, I can move things around, maybe move this headline and its subhead away from the corner. So I can Malta, land of dreams, and we're going to do a tourist promo, I can tell. We're going to write about travel, which is my hobby. I can change some of the language here to express the key articles. So if I have 5 groups in my class, I want to know what the 5 articles are. Things to do with kids. What's the next article? How to dress fashionably in Malta, because I've got a team who want to talk about fashion. Eating out, the best places to go. And now I can add a new page. And when I create this page, it's totally blank. So what I do is I go to layouts and I choose what's the next page I want. And then here we've got some of that boilerplate content I talked about. So the first thing is I need to know who's the team behind this magazine. So let's have our staff. Of course, our staff is our class. So we're going to give them all a mention here. We're going to think about their roles. Were they writers? Did they edit each other's text? You'll notice here we have a copy chief. I think it's great to use these magazine job titles in the classroom. So when I write a piece of text, I need my copy editor or my copy chief to come and give me feedback on it and do some peer-to-peer correction, do some peer-to-peer editing of my text. What about the designer? If someone illustrates, if someone's doing this work on Canva, they're the designer, put their name in. Make sure every child has a role. Of course, you've got your columnists, you've got your contributors, you've got your art director, who's probably there's probably going to be 4 or 5 art directors, depending on who has been doing most clicks on the mouse. We can also insert the contents page. So add a new page and then drag the contents over. For every image that is in this pre-created content, we need to upload our own images. So remember that a magazine requires a good number of images to become usable, to become good to look at for the audience. So make sure you take enough, and then it means that you're never short of images to bring your stories to life. And also it reminds the students what they're writing about. I wouldn't write anything in Canva. I would treat the content separately. And to do that, I would use a simple text application like Text Edit, something with no distractions. Text Edit on Mac or similar kind of Text Edit on a PC is better than Word, because you just have, I think, you have far fewer distractions when you're writing. Of course, another great way to write, if you're wanting to write collaboratively, is just to use Google Docs and prepare all your text in Google Docs. And the reason for this is really about collaborating on texts. And this is something that I want to explore in our second CPD session. How do you collaborate on a text with other people? And how can you move beyond simply one person typing to tell their story, and instead have multiple people coming together on one document, offering feedback, comments, and feedback on how to make it better. So what I'm going to do now, we've got a little bit of time for some questions and answers. I'm going to stop sharing the screen. So I actually don't want to share the screen anymore at all. So I'll just do this. Hold on. And let me take that off there. There we go. So feel free, if you have any questions or any feedback or any remarks you'd like to make, unmute your microphone and you can make that contribution straight away. Don't be shy.
Sandra, we are still. Sorry, Ewan, your screen is still visible.
I'm still screen's still visible. Okay, I'll work out a way to do that at the moment. I was sharing the screen, and I can't seem to unshare the screen. I've lost my little control to do that. So I'll work that out in the meantime. But could you all have a think about what you would like to contemplate? What questions you would like to ask right now?
See if there's someone else who might.
Anyone?
Rather than a question, hi, it's Antoinette. Rather than a question, I just want to point out a few things. I mean, thanks for the very good ideas. I jotted down a lot of notes even for the teachers who will be participating on our site for Spanish.
Yeah.
First of all, yes, Canva is another good option. It works pretty much as the same as Gilstead, the one we had proposed, but obviously we can opt for a different option. And then, as regards content and audience and all the rest you mentioned in the first part of your contribution, I think that there are very good ideas, but we have already sort of agreed about what we're going to do. So maybe we could just confirm those once again. I'm not sure if everybody agrees.
Sandro, I'll pass over to you, because in terms of curriculum, I think that it's pretty clear, but also there's a great deal of flexibility in there. Do you want to share from your perspective how this fits together with the curriculum, with the syllabus, if you like, that you shared earlier on?
Sorry. Yes. Hi, everybody, first of all. Yes, I mean, obviously, I agree with Antoinette that we have already established some themes which we could adhere to, but really, I mean, there's no issue in just sticking to those. I mean, those were just the general guidelines in order to be able to also have some criteria to go on. Just one thing, I mean, I know that I am sometimes excessively obsessive about this, and I say it each and every time, but let's always keep in mind the fact that one of the scopes of what we are doing is also to try and have some sort of cross-linguistic comparison and reflection. You know, that is why we said that ideally we'd get teachers who would be working together in different languages. This is just a point which I am raising, Ewan, more than anything, because obviously, so I'd like to thank you for the presentation and your ideas. But you also made reference to, for example, different levels of learners. Of course, we must keep in mind that, especially if we're going to take the younger learners, their proficiency, especially in the foreign language, might not be very strong. So we have to go a little bit, you know, according also to the levels that we are going to find in class. So let's also try and, you know, not aim too high, because otherwise we might get extremely complex and compelling, possibly, stories within the mother tongue, but possibly much lesser so in the foreign language, and that automatically defeats the purpose of trying to compare and trying to also use cross-linguistic skills which may be transferable from one language to another.
That's it. And I think the great challenge you have is, first of all, every class has a large number of student abilities in it. So the joy of using magazine as a format is that it generally provides some kind of visual stimulus for the writing. I think that is the key point that everyone should remember, that a student writing with a blank page is not the same as a student writing with a visual stimulus. If you take one of the challenges with, I was looking at Gilster, and it's great, don't get me wrong. I love it. But the first thing it gives you is a blank page when you create your magazine. And for a lot of students, that's going to be, you know, if you start with the form rather than starting with the content, it's going to be a little bit, where do I begin? So, you know, the piece of advice it gives on the front page of Gilster is absolutely spot on. Find the right images for your magazine and write first. Make sure that you write first before you go to the kind of the work of bringing it together in a magazine. In terms of, you know, having a plan and going towards that, I think the plan you've got is relatively simple. So phase one is thinking about a cover page for the magazine, thinking about the content, if you like, the format that you're going to make. I would say that you have to think about who the audience is. You have to think about the topic that you're going to concentrate on in the magazine. If you're going to be 30 students all looking at one topic, then there's a certain case for then thinking about which rubrics do we need in a magazine, what types of article, what different types of content can we get, because what you do not want are 30 identical articles going into a so-called magazine. The students will see it for what it is. Instead, think about, I'll go back to those points I was making earlier on, but think about, first of all, the content that you want, the topic you're looking to cover, and I would pick one general topic per team. And the team might be 3 or 4 students, or it might be 30 students. But very quickly, you should be asking, what's the audience for this? And above all, what types of content do magazines have? That discussion, I would not hesitate to do in the foreign language. I think that many of the European languages, when it comes to talking about the types of things we write about, the content of a magazine, there are so many cognates that it's great for raising learner confidence in their language. So prepare this by thinking about the cognates you can use to keep this entirely immersed in the foreign language. And it will give students great confidence. They'll start to realize, actually, there's a lot of this that is similar to my own language. And maybe at the end of the lesson, you do a little bit of review in the mother tongue to say, hey, what did we learn today? What kinds of words did we pick up on? And introduce them to the idea that actually, when it comes to building a magazine, much of the vocabulary is shared between languages.
Yes, excellent point. I mean, I agree absolutely on this. Even the very fact that, I mean, obviously, cognate is a good example, but the very fact that there could also be some space for reflection, you know, I mean, actually reflecting on what is being done. That's a good suggestion, definitely.
Okay. V's got a question. There's maybe build up on these. So if there are other questions coming to mind, keep hold of them and then answer them. We'll ask them later on. V, what have you got to ask or say here to help us?
Hi, everyone. First of all, thinking about what Sandra was saying before about this, giving this space for reflection and so on, I was also thinking whilst following your presentation. I'm not going to participate in the magazine creation, so I'm outside of that. But the issue is maybe we can include some other processes. So you can integrate this reflection about the different languages through the process of actually writing the content. So Ewan mentioned Google Docs for writing collaboratively, and I think that reflection comes across using such tools like Google Docs. On another hand, even when deciding about the content, or maybe deciding about the tone, or deciding like when letting the students decide, maybe one could use some form of forum or discussion boards that can help this reflection process further. Maybe giving specific tasks to students, so they're actually thinking about the process of bringing together the content for the magazine, or maybe deciding what sort of photos to use, or deciding what sort of input or role to have within the magazine itself. So more than concentrating the lessons, because I saw the lesson plan as well, so more than concentrating the lessons on the actual output, on the actual magazine, we could also try to give due importance to the process of bringing all these things together and the magazine final output. Yeah.
I think you're absolutely spot on, because I think the greatest challenge in this is not actually in each student writing, because we can do writing anyway. We don't need a magazine to write. The great thing is having to coordinate and collaborate on your writing. It's not about everyone writing their own identical thing to the kid next door to them, which is the traditional way. The whole point of a magazine is it has contributors, and they contribute towards something. Now, for that, they need to have an awareness of what their friends are writing about so that they can differentiate it. And it also means moving away from the kind of what you might call formulaic way of learning languages, where everyone en masse would write about the same thing. So, at the end of the day, you don't even have to produce a magazine that looks like a magazine. You might produce a magazine like, when I think about the ones that I've been reading today, I dipped into Fast Company. And Fast Company actually has more people on its website, like many magazines, than it does on its paper magazine. And what does it look like? It looks like a blog. It's a news blog, with every article has a strong image and a short headline, a sub-headline, and then a longer text if you choose to read more. And so that today in 2015 is as much a magazine as the paper magazine that you might envisage down at the newsagent. And to produce that, it's more useful to think in terms of how do we collaborate to make sure we constantly produce different work from each other. Something that my writing is not the same as your writing. So I think that's a really good point, V. Any other questions or points to be made? These are all great points being made so far. No one's got their hand up.
Right. Yeah, just one other thing. I think also one point that you hinged. I agree with Vanessa's comment regarding the process rather than the product. Vanessa's absolutely right on this. What I wanted to add is that in your presentation, I think you also mentioned, maybe a little bit briefly, but I think you mentioned an important point, because it's something that we do, or we are trying to adopt more in our local educational system. That is the possibility of giving different tasks that the magazine should actually offer, to give different tasks to students with different abilities, which is, I think, quite crucial in what more broadly can be termed as differentiated teaching or differentiated learning. So again, I think this is again another possible reflection that the teachers who will be involved in this could also hinge upon, actually giving the opportunities to learners to express themselves differently, also on the basis of their own competencies.
I think
I know that sometimes it's a challenge within our local educational system, Ewan, which tends to be overly prescriptive and sometimes, expects the same results from all students irrespective of their abilities. So maybe this magazine, despite being small and relatively self-contained, can offer teachers who are involved, a possibility to reflect on this, giving more autonomy and space to the students themselves. Because at the end of the day, to go back to what Vanessa said, it's really the process more than the product.
I think there's two ways you can go about that. There would be, I think, for the educator who maybe feels that I couldn't possibly let my students choose what they're going to write about. I think I know them better. Then yes, you might yourself, or maybe with the students, work out what are the components of a magazine, and then you, the teacher, help those students work out what might be best for them to do. And that's being diplomatic, if you like, and saying, that there are some things that are easier than others, and I'm going to help you find what's suitable for you. Of course, the other way of doing this is that you find a mechanism that allows students to decide for themselves what it is they're going to do. And so you help them share the success criteria, and you help them understand how this is all going to fit together. Excuse me, my hesitation is because I'm a typical guy and I can't do two things at once. I wanted to show you a picture of what it might look like. So here is using, let me just clear, I'll just clear this list of participants off. Hold on. Let me get rid of that. There we go. I wanted to show you some students in our school in Sydney, Australia. And you'll notice on the ground, they've got hexagonal cutouts that they're using. And what you might consider doing is, as a class, a whole class, brainstorm what are all the different types of articles, features, boilerplate content that magazines tend to have. To do that, I would bring in a pile of old magazines and let them read through and let them identify the different content types that are available. I would, as teacher, write down all the suggestions they are coming up with, one suggestion per hexagon. And then I would actually ask the students to work out which type of content do you think is the most difficult to write, and get them, this is effectively thinking ahead to how they're going to produce a text. So if they see long feature articles, obviously that's more complicated than writing captions for a photo. At least it seems like that at first glance. When you've done that, you might want students then to decide for themselves, what do you think you are capable of doing today, and pick that hexagon up. What do you think you are capable of doing with a little bit of help? So they pick up something that's maybe a little bit more tricky. And what do you feel would be really challenging for you? So they pick up 3 hexagons, and we could call those green, amber, and red. So green, I feel confident I can produce this myself. Amber, I'm a little less sure. I might need some help from a friend or from a teacher or from someone else. And then red, this is really difficult. I don't think I'll manage to do it. And then, of course, their objective, and their learning objective, is to work their way quickly through the green into the amber and then make an attempt at the red. Why hexagons? Because what it allows you to do is then bring those hexagons together into a bit of a map of the magazine. So when your students have actually gone and written what they're going to write, maybe their first version of the text is tiny. It's a short, little hexagonal-sized prototype of their writing. But now they try and work out, how do all these pieces of writing fit together? How are they related to each other? What might be relevant to put together? And that begins to decide the layout of the magazine in a way. It helps set the themes for the magazine. That's maybe one idea to offer more choice to students while still having a degree of overview as a teacher and maybe a little bit more control as well. Are there any other questions that you would like to ask? If there are no more questions now, what we can do is we'll call a close to this particular meeting. I apologise that I've not been able to stop sharing my screen in spite of trying. I lost that option through I've got a lot of different screens open, so it's hiding somewhere. Sorry that you've only got small pictures of people speaking, but hopefully that's not been a huge disadvantage for you. If you do have a question, then we'll put this video on the MaltaBLT.net website, and you can ask a question in the comments underneath the video. And either I or one of the education team or one of your peers from the project can leave a suggestion of an answer to help you out. Daniela and Sandro, I think if that's us, then that hour has gone by very quickly for me. I can't believe how fast it's gone. But I realise it's almost dinner time for people in Malta, perhaps, or aperitivo time at least. So I'll let you guys close off and make any final announcements you maybe need to the people participating in the project.
Yes, so thank you very much, Ewan, for that fruitful presentation. I just want to add a couple of announcements. First is that the second CPD session is going to be held on the 14th of October. It's going to be face-to-face. So, so that we recollect and regroup, and we get to meet the new members, hopefully. So please, Sharon will be in touch with all of you so that you let her know whether you can make it or otherwise. Please appreciate that the dates have been already set since I think June because of Ewan's very busy calendar. I appreciate that you are all as well busy, but as you can see, I think at least from my side, this was very informative, very fruitful, and it should be able to help teachers taking the project to schools. It will be a help for them. So that's my announcement. The second is I just wanted to make things clear, just in case, that we are not after a fully fledged magazine or an end product by the end of this year. We are just exploring ways on how we can better use technology in classrooms to teach languages. And by all means, if this is something that you would like to take forward to next year or expand in any other way, yes, of course. I mean, the purpose of the community is not just to have one project, but hopefully, you get inspired, you would want to work with us. Malta has resources, so we can create other projects, help in any way possible. So please don't just think of this as one project. Hey, let's finish it off, or I'm going to manage because I only managed to do one page of the magazine. It's fine. One page is enough as well. Another thing I wanted to add, I know that Sharon was in touch with the new teachers. If you have any questions, please, or you would like to meet because things are not clear, or I don't know, whatever you require, please get in touch with Sharon. Sharon, you can get in touch with us. You can get in touch directly with us as well. I mean, my email address is daniela.buzitil@gov.mt, should you wish to send an email. We're here to support you. You are on the ground, you are the experts on the ground. We're here to provide support in any way you require. Again, we yes, because we're having an internal meeting here at the moment as well. Again, this is not a closed group. This is an open group. We want to grow it. We want it to grow organically. If you know of other teachers who would be interested to participate, both in your school or outside of your school, whether it's government, church, private school, whoever is welcome to participate in this. Join us in the CPT sessions. They are free, of course. Thank you, Ewan. From your end, I mean, For you, it's free. For us, it's not. But that's besides the point. So please, you know of any other teachers, do invite them over. Do let them know. We have a blog, we have Facebook page. You know, I know Vanessa posts nearly every day. Thank you very much. You know, let's grow this network. I don't want to add anything else.
No, at this stage, no, because I just realized. No, I just confirm what Daniela said. I mean, regarding even the possibility of extending to more teachers. So yes, obviously it's an open project. So the whole point is to try and gain some momentum. Obviously, there's also, I mean, just to, as an aside, we also need to start planning for the showcase of the 4th December. But we'll come to that, I suppose, on another day.
Well, listen, thank you very much for the opportunity to have spent some time with you this evening. We'll draw a close to this, and the video will be online towards the end of this evening or first thing tomorrow morning, depending how long it takes to upload, of course. So thanks to everybody. And I'm going to stop the recording now, and you're welcome to stay and use this facility to talk to